I ended up picking up a couple of new Soviet Russian watches that I'll show you in just a minute. But I like had to ask myself, why am I interested in these things? Like, what do they mean to me? I don't have ancestry from there. I haven't ever particularly cared or spent much time learning about their culture. And then it dawned on me what it's from. It really is my sixth grade year, which was like so formative for me. I was in this GT classroom in Colorado Springs, and I had this teacher named Tony Johnson, who was a war veteran, and he said that he had seen with his own eyes the blast from a nuclear test bomb, and that it messed him up for the rest of his life. And he used to talk about how if we survived the initial blast from a blast on Cheyenne Mountain, which we could see out our window, and he said it would be one of the first targets that the Russians would hit, how we could survive the rest of it. I remember how we should drink water out of the water heater and eat canned food so that we don't get beta particles into our system. I mean, that stuff stuck with me. And also, like, that class was when I realized that I was interested in computers. I learned how to program in BASIC, and I won a computer programming contest, and I got advanced in math. I remember he specifically taught us how to use a slide rule because he was afraid that our brains would get soft if all we did was use computers and calculators. Sounds familiar, right? So that was the beginning of it all, and these watches are like fossils from that period for me, and literally too. Like, have you ever been to a fossil shop and you can buy like the little $3 cheap fossils? They're not making anymore. Same with eBay. You can buy these things for less than $100. They're not making anymore. Anyway, let me show them to you. First, I'll show you this one, which is a Vostok. It's upside down to you, so I'll show it to you properly. And then I have this one, which is a Raketa, Copernicus. This is the Vostok Amphibian Albatross. They were made in they started making them in like 1967. And I think that they were meant to compete with Rolex Submariners and Blancpain 50 Fathoms. It's got a screw down crown, but I've got to be honest with you, this crown feels really delicate. When I was setting the time, I was a little nervous that I could break it. But the dial is pretty clean. I saw a lot of these on eBay where the little sail or flag right there that has, you can't see it, but behind there is a hammer and sickle. That flag was cracked. So this company, Vostok, was born out of World War II. There was a watch factory in Moscow that was under siege by the Germans, and they moved that factory, which was producing ammunitions for the war. They moved it, and after the war they went back to producing watches for civilians. So that's kind of cool. That shows some flexibility that is kind of similar to the type of flexibility that we'll need in this era of AI. And this one is the Raketa Copernicus, which I think is just an absolutely perfect symbol of what that sixth grade class meant to me, and this whole TikTok channel about the advancements of AI and technology, and just being the type of people that can accommodate ourselves and adapt ourselves to that. So in this one, the yellow circle is the sun, and the silver one is the moon, and once an hour there's an eclipse. Raketa also means rocket. So this watch might have been literally being made, although all these watches are kind of Franken watches when you pick them up off eBay from Ukraine. But parts of it might have been literally being made while I was sitting worrying about rockets in Colorado Springs next to Cheyenne Mountain. I just wanted to add also, because it doesn't go without saying, that Copernicus is the one that made the heliocentric concept of our solar system. So without telescopes, proper telescopes to figure out that the planets in fact were going around the sun, he was able to do math equations and figure out, wait a minute, these things, like the math adds up that these things must be going around the sun and not the earth. So super fascinating guy. Because of his findings, later Galileo was I didn't realize what happened to Galileo. It turned out he was condemned and sentenced to prison, but his prison was more of a golden cage. He was actually never mistreated or tortured or anything like that, but um, he was just put in a position where his theories as a 69-year-old were said by the church to be wrong, and he was not allowed to have them. They were heresy. So those are my two new watches. Thanks for taking a look.